And good morning to you. It is now about 47 minutes after the hour on this Wednesday. It's going to be a Waterford Wednesday. It looks like that will happen later on today. It's going to be a bit soggy out there at the Big Four Bridge lawn area, but no severe weather to have to worry about for later on, which is certainly some good news. Now, the rest of the events for later this week and the weekend, that's where things start to run into a problem, as you might have guessed that was going to be an issue. With so many people being outside, big stages out there, you guys get it. So that's one of the aspects of why an alert day is already out for Friday, but I don't think any of you are shocked that that's the case at all. We have the leftovers of what will soon be, if not already, a hurricane. The leftovers will be moving in with a lot of rain and some wind, but a lot of rain, making just travel just really messy as we head into Friday. So we'll cover more on that in a second. As you guys know, we're going to, yes, you saw my alert on the Fujiwhara effect. I will explain what that is in just a few minutes, Doug. I say it a lot in a different term. And I think if you guys watch the blog a lot, you know what that term is. Feel free to chat and type it in there if you like. Okay, let's get into the live look first. A couple things I want to address before we get into the outlook for later this week. Here's a live look in Bardstown. Cloudy. This is one of those cloudier days, drizzle at times. You may see a hint or two of blue sky, but it will be just that, a hint or two. Mostly cloudy skies are going to roll today. And a much lighter drizzly scenario, maybe a couple thunderstorms south and east. I'll show you where coming up here in just a second. All right, let's cover first off what yesterday's setup was about, as we had that southwest flow that was stuck over us. We were talking about that yesterday. If you guys were watching in the afternoon, I was trying to cover some of the storms. And then, of course, we ended up with the tornado warning. Things got a little hectic there. But there were really two bands that developed. This is the one band that the models hit very hard for several days. The one near the river, they really didn't start to see very well until about this time yesterday. It started to focus in a little more on the idea that near the river could be a problem too. And that's when we upgraded to an alert day once we started to see the signs of that. Even though these storms down here we knew could be strong, just a much higher population level and impact would be a problem if we were to get any type of damaging weather in that zone. And that unfortunately looks to be the case. You're looking at the radar. This is yesterday afternoon. Let me zoom in. We had that storm down into LaRue County. We had damage there. It went across Greene and Taylor and Marion. No reports anyway of anything tornadic in that area, just FYI. This is the one that the Weather Service is looking at right now as I'm talking to you guys. And it started really into Corydon where we saw the burst of wind. I was sitting next to Ryan Oak. We were looking at the SkyTri camera and the wind hit that camera. And I knew then we're like, oh, there's a problem here. These winds are being realized in some cases a little bit higher than even what the radar was suggesting, indicating that we may run into a problem. So we watched the cells that moved across Floyd. That's where some of the damage was starting to come in as far as like power line poles being knocked down, that kind of ordeal at a very familiar spot of the Lee Hamilton area, close to Paley Pike, Highway 150. Then we got into Clark County, and that's when the rotation really started to show up even more. And that, let me stop the radar. Let me clear my wand. And that was roughly, I don't have velocity on this. You're looking at just rainfall. But I would say it was very close to about 135 to 138. Somewhere in that window is where it really started to tighten up on rotation. This is the point right here in southern Clark that so far they have found EF0 tornado damage. Don't know the exact location yet. Their survey is ongoing. We do have a crew with them, by the way, so we may have more even as soon as midday. We'll have more. But at this point, this is where it really tightened up, and this is where the damage report started showing up. It continued into the eastern side of Clark. This is when the tornado warning came out. Tornado warning came out about 1:52 yesterday. I only included a small part of Jefferson County, but it was mainly for Oldham and eastern Clark was the focal point. It continued after 2 o'clock into the Oldham County area. The rest of the showers, storms tailing behind it never really powered back up to severe limits, which was good. This thing continued. I mean, it kept going and going really all the way into southern Ohio and northern West Virginia, causing problems. So it was really a long-tracked supercell type of setup embedded in a line of showers and storms. And once these machines get going like that, there's very little to slow them down. But once it became strong signal that that's what was happening. That's when those service got that tornado warning out. So we'll let you know what the surveys say on this. No one was hurt. That's the good thing, which is what our goal every time. Damage can be repaired, right? But lives can be repaired, but it cannot be replaced. So we just want to make sure we're always trying to drive that home for you guys, to just be really paying attention and be safe, because these moments, this was a marginal risk day, and this zone was in a marginal risk. It never entered a slight risk. You had to go to the other side of Jefferson County, Oldham County to get to the slight risk. So it just goes to show you those outlooks, while they're great, don't always line up with the reality of what severe weather can take place. So that's why we got to always just exercise our caution. Okay, enough on that. I just want to make sure to explain that, where we're at on that survey. Again, EF0 so far. We'll let you know more coming up soon, because they're still going to be going across Clark and Oldham counties where the wind really spikes. So got a feeling they're going to find something there. Okay, so today we've got a cloudy, drizzly scenario, some heavier downpours to the east. This is where if we're going to get any thunderstorms today, it's going to be here, really outside of wave country, more of a Jackson, Kentucky, near Lexington. That's the issue to watch for any thunderstorms. For us, we're just going to keep seeing a surgence of just steady light showers move through the area. Cloud cover keeping the Cape or the fuel instability down today significantly. So that gives us a little bit of a break. Wider view shows how this is all going to evolve, as we have the driver in the seat is a low pressure and upper low. It was up here yesterday. It is now here, settling into Arkansas. Very unusual track because, again, as you guys know, the Atlantic is closed, right? So it can't go east. So it's going to just settle into the Ozarks and hang out. This is where things become a problem, because now we're going to get Helene to move in. And as Helene moves in, as we've said, it doesn't have anywhere to go north and east. So it has no choice but to try to find a way somewhere. It's almost like a panic mode that Helene goes through, because it's still got forward momentum pushing into the United States. But it's also about to hit a brick wall, and it's about to hit one of those stop signs where you can only go left or you can go right. There is no straight through. So you get to the T, and this is where Helene has to make a decision. Well, our upper low that is now over Arkansas is going to make the decision for Helene. And this is where the Fujiwhara effect comes in, which is, as Jonathan alluded to in the chat, I saw your comment, that is the dumbbell effect. It can happen with one tropical system, one upper low. It can be two upper lows in the wintertime even. But basically, it's literally the dumbbell effect of where you get a low pressure that will move in. They dance around each other for a moment. Sometimes it will absorb the little one. The bigger system, the stronger one, will absorb the little one and becomes one. Or in some cases, they both just end up ricocheting off each other and dissipating altogether. It's usually a little different. I will say that I can't recall a tropical system doing a dumbbell effect in the Ohio Valley. I was trying to think the other day if I've seen that before. I don't think I have. So this is a very rare setup that we're talking about. That is going to be rare for a lot of folks in the southeast corner of the country, because it is something we talk more about in the wintertime and not with tropical systems. So this is going to get a little interesting. We're getting into an anomaly, as I always call it, an anomaly setup where models are great to an extent, because there is an ounce of history that's always considered into modeling on the idea of what is likely to happen based on climatology and so forth. And you get these one-off events like this. Sometimes things just get a little weird. You can get your one-off events on the reality side too. And that's where a lot of meteorologists are studying this setup, because I do think this is going to be an interesting study to be had for meteorologists later on. So you guys are witnessing very interesting weather history here over the next couple of days. I don't think it's anything that's going to set records for us, but it may, for some parts on its different elements of what will happen, may be record-breaking for the southeast corner of the country. Okay, so that's the Fujiwhara effect. It's a lot easier to say dumbbell effect, a lot easier. But that's what you're going to be hearing the term. That's what it's referring to. Where is Helene now? Well, it's got at least a radar out of Cuba showing up. So we're starting to see now the outer bands showing up in the Key West radar as well. So what we're going to do is the easiest way to do this. I don't know if it's easy. I'm going to try to break this up by, first off, an overview of what to expect on time frame as this dumbbell effect happens and we get this merging. Then I'm going to break down the different aspects of why we are concerned and why the alert day is out. And then we'll get into a bit of the longer term. I know you guys may have a lot of questions, maybe not. Maybe hopefully we'll explain everything to where you don't have questions, but hold on to your questions if you can. Let me try to explain, and it is a bit complex, so I'm just going to stress that. But we only get like 3 minutes on TV to explain this, which is nearly impossible. So I have a moment now to sit with you guys one-on-one, and let's talk this out to where hopefully we are very clear on what to expect and the weather elements you need to prepare for. And then on TV, we do just updates to what I'm about to explain. Okay, let's start with the latest on Helene itself. And this advisory is about an hour or so old. It will be updated within the hour. So I'll have the new stats coming up on midday. But boy, this escalated quickly, didn't it? Really has ramped up, getting much more organized than what it did yesterday. A bit slow. It says 9 miles per hour. It doesn't look like it's really moved a whole lot. If anything, it looks like it's kind of just drifted a bit, but that's just where the thunderstorms, it's a bit of an illusion to the eye. Thunderstorms are kind of developing around the center of it, which is located right in here. Okay, winds, you see up there, 70 miles per hour. It's right at the level of being a hurricane, and I'm sure the 11 a.m. advisory will likely have this as Hurricane Helene. So forecast become a major hurricane. How up in that scale does it go? That's always a challenge for meteorologists, and that type of forecasting is still a long way off from getting perfect, but it certainly has gotten better even in the past 10 years. It certainly has improved. But so far, at the bare minimum, a Cat 3 looks to be on the table, but this could go higher. This could go higher. It does have a bit of forward motion to it, so it has a narrow window to work with, thank goodness, or this should be bigger. But look at the alerts that are out. There's the hurricane warning, but look at the hurricane watches, tropical storm warnings that are out all the way through the Carolinas. This is an unusually large system at this phase of development. Hurricanes, when they weaken, tend to double, sometimes triple in size as they weaken. They expand, become just big, heavy rain machines. This one is already large and will continue to get large as it moves into the northeast Gulf of Mexico and remain a large system, which is the reason why it's covering so much of the southeast corner with a lot of heavy rain and a lot of wind because of that. The wind fields are very expansive with this. This is difficult, as just a side note, for, boy, the airline industry. It is tough to try to get around all this. So there's going to be a lot of delays showing up. For those who have travel plans into Florida, the Carolinas, Atlanta, as you're about to see with the rain total, Atlanta could get up to a foot of rain out of this. That is incredible. And that certainly is going to cause problems for Atlanta Hartsfield. So just again, travel on the road and by air is going to be impacted here the next few days. So we're trying to give you as much of a heads up, but this is almost a nationwide kind of issue everyone's discussing right now just because of how many cities it's hitting. But for us locally, we will have some certainly impacts because eventually this weakens to a tropical depression Friday into Saturday. And you see how they put the L's for depression there. They just kind of plot one, I don't know, just west of Knoxville. Then they're, say, the land between the lakes area a couple of times. It just drifts in a circle because it's basically going around the dumbbell effect, our low pressure. It's in Arkansas. The only thing that I'm watching out here on where they're plotting this, and what you see here is just the track information only, not the wind. If you're in the center of it, right under the L, your wind is actually relatively calm compared to the other edges of that circulation. So the center of it, the wind won't be terribly strong, but on either end, and certainly on the east end, that is where your strongest of wind will occur. Well, that's where we're going to be based on the idea this is going to pull back to the west. Before it goes up 65, it will go backwards more toward the low. It get pulled toward Arkansas. So that will keep us on the windy side of the system, very heavy rainfall. And because we're on the eastern side, we are in the American flag box area, if you will. I always refer to as the tornado zone. We're in that zone, being on the east side of the spin. So there is a low-end tornado threat that can accompany this scenario. That does look higher east than it does here, but I think that I-65 is a good dividing line right now for that potential. All right. That's going to be tough to answer this far in advance. I'll have to get back to that in a couple of days, really the day of. We'll be able to answer that a little clearer. But right now it's a little too early. I can just tell you just on position where we're going to be. What I don't know yet is, will the sky break? Will we get a little bit of sun mixed in? How much moisture will be around? Where will the position exactly be? Those finer details, which are important, don't get me wrong, still have to be answered, and that will make a difference on the aspect of any tornado threat that everyone, I'm sure, is going to be asking more about. But as far as the rain and the wind part, that's a little easier to kind of forecast. So here we go. I'm going to walk you through this. Note the clock at the top left. This is just one model's idea, but I think it is, a lot of them are in really good agreement in general. So there's not many variants in the models right now, which is excellent to see that. Normally that's a problem, especially in a complex setup like this, but they're actually doing fairly well. It's pretty impressive. So it's fair to show this. So here we go. This afternoon, any spotty showers again. Not worried about anything on the thunderstorm side. Tomorrow, fairly quiet on your Thursday. Spotty showers around, nothing major happening tomorrow during the daytime period. Now we get into tomorrow night. Remember our upper low. I feel like we should name it because we got Helene, maybe Bob. This is Bob. Here's Bob over here into Arkansas. Maybe the Weather Channel is on to something by naming stuff. It's easier. There's Bob over there into Arkansas. All right, here is the band of rain that is really a hybrid. It's a mix of the rain from the eastern side of Bob and Helene being pulled north. Watch that band of rain that will develop around the Smoky Mountains and East Kentucky tomorrow night. Because what you're going to see is the very beginning of the Fujiwhara effect or dumbbell effect, where it grabs a hold of it and pulls it backwards. So everything's moving backwards. This will lead into what looks to be a messy rush hour for Friday morning. Heavy rain and bands of wind coming through the area. At this point, at 10:30 in the morning, we'll be on, I'm sure, here on the blog on Friday. The center of Helene's here. Bob's over here, but at this point, they're just really starting to merge together, right? Bands of heavier rain. But notice the pull to the west is so strong versus to the north, but the heavier rain is also going to follow quickly west, not northwest. So that's leading to a bit of a challenge for us on a rainfall totals forecast, because it could be really extreme for southern Kentucky and Tennessee. And you get up to northern Kentucky and certainly into Indiana, boy, the amounts could really drop off compared to what the southern part of the viewing area would get, because it is going to be such a nonstop train getting pulled west. I'm not seeing a strong signal northwest. So I do think we're going to have a pretty high rain total forecast, but I don't see it being uniform north to south. I think if you're north, you're going to have a much lower rainfall outlook than to the south. That trend I am seeing. Okay, so here we are at 10:30 in the morning. On Friday, it's moving by. We get to 2:30 in the afternoon. Whew, what a mess. Bands of rain, wind. We'll cover that in a second on the wind part. This is where we need to start watching the eastern side here of the circulation for any type of heating that can go on to get an isolated tornado threat. It will be where this little curl is. So right in through here is where we're watching for any isolated tornado threat, which again, I-75 stands out more than I-65 when it comes to that threat. Got a feeling Storm Prediction Center probably will put something out like that, like a marginal, maybe even a slight in East Kentucky. That wouldn't surprise me. I don't see it west, east, if anything. So 7:30 in the evening, touchdown Friday night. Here's the thing. There is a dry pocket, almost like in the wintertime. There is a dry pocket in the center that will try to push in. I don't know if that's going to aim toward Bowling Green or into Louisville or towards Cincinnati, but just about every model has this dry pocket. So there is a fairly decent chance they're going to go from just an absolute deluge kind of setup, heavy rain all day long, wind, and then we get into Friday evening, and then suddenly it just stops. We get into a dry slot for a while. That would be great for Friday evening plans. It's still going to be windy, but it would cut down on the high impact Friday night of very heavy rainfall. I'm hoping the dry slot remains in future outlooks, but that is so far a sign that I'm seeing for Friday night. Will it last? Of course not. It will fill right back in again as we head into Saturday, as now we are dealing with what looks to be Boblin emerging of the two as one low pressure. We all become unified. This is a great American story, actually. So as we head into Saturday, the low is still stuck over us, but it will likely still produce, before I animate this, it will likely still produce a steady rain on Saturday but we lose the tropical characteristics. So not as much wind, not as heavy of a rain. Temperatures don't move. Wherever we fall Friday night, we're going to be there Saturday. So mid-60s and a steady rain. Saturday, it's going to be such a good nap day. Such a good nap day. We don't have to worry about severe weather, just a steady rain at that point. But if we have some flooding issues from Friday left over, yeah, okay, we may still have that to worry about. But Saturday, again, has a high rain chance, just as the dumbbell effect, the merger of the two systems. Okay, so rainfall. This is just an outlook right now of the generalization. As Helene moves in, you get the effect of Bob that gets him into the storyline, and then things get soggy. Before I get into our rainfall, look at Atlanta and look at the foothills as you get into the Appalachians. The reason for that, you are taking a tremendous amount of tropical moisture and throwing it up against the mountains. And again, the Appalachians are not overly tall compared to the Rockies, but they're tall, right? So the rain hits it, but it can't really go over it. So all that rain just scoops up to it, kind of like when you see the rain flow out of your gutter and hit a wall on the sidewalk or something, and it changes the flow. It's running up against the Appalachians, and that is going to lead to very high rain totals. I'm talking 12 to maybe 15 inches of rain, which is going to lead to rock slides. It is going to be significant and may even be, again, as I alluded to, a record-breaking event for these folks, especially because this is very odd to see this kind of effect, because it's really ramping up so intensely because of what's happening with Bob and Helene. That combination just creates an incredible flow. For us, rainfalls, again, you can see it's got a very sharp west turn there, not so much toward Indy. So that's why if you are watching in Campbellsville, you're watching in Greensburg, Adair County area in Columbia, Bowling Green, more likely to get several inches of rain out of this. Louisville could easily get at least 2, maybe more. 2 to 5 is fair for Louisville. I would say 4 to 6 for Southern Kentucky seems to be a growing trend. And then you get into Indiana, 1 to 3. And maybe even just 1 to 2 in our far northern counties of Indiana. That's quite the range from an inch to a half a foot in our southern tier of county. So again, the track and placement, that is so important in this guy, so important on impact. So we'll see how this looks tomorrow. We've got a big heads up on it. So we'll see how this will play out. Once this low becomes the main low itself, things will quiet down. But again, as this moves through, that heavy rain on Friday, the first, 10 hours or so, the daytime period on Friday is just going to be difficult. As far as just the constant wind and rain, it's not going to be impossible. It's not a crippling winter storm. All right, this is not an impossible setup, but it is going to be a high impact where it's just going to be nasty out there. I don't think anyone's going to want to do anything. You will. Some of you have no choice. You got to go out. You got to go to work. I get that. But if you don't have to travel, then don't make it worse on the roads. Just kind of stay off of them and let those that have to be out deal with the elements without dealing with congestion of traffic at the same time. For those of you going to all the events, Ladder Life, I promise you, they're watching it. We're watching it. We'll have more on that on our news side as we get the next couple of days. Okay, wind. This one always seems to get more popularity points than rainfall. But this is the Euro on wind gust. It won't be too bad until really Thursday night. Thursday night, early Friday morning, it'll start to get gustier. We get into about rush hour on Friday morning. Now we're starting to get gusts over 30 miles per hour, especially as the southeast side sees the effects of it approaching. Gusts up to 30 elsewhere. We get toward midday, and this is the worst of the wind, is the daytime period on Friday. Midday, gust 40 to 50 miles per hour across the area. This is likely going to lead to a wind advisory. Could even lead to a high wind watch or warning for East Kentucky and East Tennessee. I think right now I don't see that limit for us. I'm thinking for us at the moment, it looks more like a wind advisory. Why not higher? Cloud cover is key on that. A rainy, cloudy setup has limits. It's mainly gradient wind, so we can forecast that a lot easier. If we were to shut the rain off immediately at noon on Friday and go partly sunny, then you add mixing in with the gradient wind, and you then really have a problem. And that is basically what happened with Ike when we got the really excessive wind, very little rainfall, as it dried up. It was a leftover hurricane that dried up. It still had the gradient wind and sunshine that enhance the wind. We see this being saturated for us, where we're going to have cloudy skies and rain. So to get to that level like Ike was, where he dried out and suddenly shut up, that was a very, very rare anomaly. This is not what is in the forecast for this system. Still 40 to 50 mile per hour winds going to get your attention. Isolated power outages, you bet, certainly possible. Widespread, unlikely, but isolated, yeah, because we still have leaves on the trees, but boy, they are either dying or weak, or drought stress is taking care of a lot of that. So the trees are not as heavily weighted as they were in the summer. So the amount of tree damage should go down compared to what you normally would expect. And we've been quite dry, so the roots are locked in there with that ground at the moment. So especially quite deep. So there's not a huge risk of tree damage right now, but still there'll be some. All right, very windy on Friday. Winds will start to ease back Friday night, but in general, it's going to take 2 to 3 days to get the wind back within its normal breeze. It's going to be at least breezy for the entire weekend. All right, so a lot of you have been asking. I've seen your questions. What about Sunday? What about Sunday? What about Sunday? All right, so Stephanie, Sunday is when Tracy had, hopefully I just answered your question on the power outages. Isolated, certainly possible. Sunday, it's still the one system. It's the bobbling that is combined, but very, very weak. But boy, it is cloudy, kind of drizzly on Sunday, spotty showers, but heavy rain. Don't see that signal. Don't see any severe weather signal, and I don't see a lot of wind. So very similar. Sunday's weather will be similar to what we've got coming our way really tomorrow. If you want to match what tomorrow will be like, even today actually, will be very similar to Sunday. All right, what happens after this? Well, we have another front coming in, and it's a strong front. But we had bobbling happen. So as this front moves in, Tuesday and Wednesday next week just doesn't have much to work with other than dropping temperatures down to the coolest we've had so far since really mid-spring. It's going to be chilly next week. Not to frost level yet, but there could be a few spots, maybe about 39 to 41. So getting chilly next week with this push of air, but mainly dry, and there may be another one after that for that following weekend. So now we're getting a little closer to what could be an early frost scenario by mid-October that continues to show up. The stage is set. It is worth mentioning that there are some models, including the Euro, that want to repeat this again. No, this would be about the first 10 days of October. It wants to try to bring in another leftovers event, and I don't know if we'll have a dumbbell effect or not, but boy, that would be what a change in the storyline. But that's how we do things around here. We go from one extreme to the other, and we don't flinch. We're used to it. We're professionals. All right, let me get you to the 10-day, and I'll get you to some of your questions you've got. I'm sure you got some, right? Let's see. Kathy, stoke up my wood stove. There you go. Get ready for next week. Did you see the rain snow line? I wasn't paying attention, Angie, but yeah, the rain snow line is showing up more and more. All right. Brandon, imagine if all the rain was snow. I love that question. If you were to take it, face value on that idea, then yeah, this would be like, 40 to 60 inches of snow, but you don't get high amounts of moisture with cold air. You get lower amounts of moisture. So it wouldn't really be quite as even, but I know what you're trying to do. I get it. Snow lovers, we always have to say that, right? Alex, louder than life Friday. Any insights? I don't know what they're going to do. I'm sure this has been a consideration. You got to remember that, louder than life started out being basically a Champions Park, and the flooding a decade ago was a problem, and it shut them down. It was such a muddy mess, which that picture for some reason is going viral again. That's not at the Highland Festival grounds. That's at Champions Park from the flooding. But it led to them moving to this location. So as far as getting away from flooding, check. But the wind is the only thing I think they have to kind of adjust for, because these big stages are up. They got to be careful. The wind is going to be strong. Tropical storm force winds coming in from the east, aiming right into the face of the stages for a while there on Friday is going to be a challenge for them. So it'll be a safety concern, I'm sure. But if you've got tickets to it, I'm sure they've got a way to communicate with you all. And we, of course, will update you on the news side. But I don't want to speak for them at all, because I have no idea what their plans are. They may have a perfect plan, and that doesn't impact people in a huge way. Okay, we get into, I know we got Nulu Fest this weekend as well. Sunday looks better than Saturday. Saturday is going to be the rough one. Friday afternoon, if that dry sock can move in Friday afternoon, there is a glimmer of hope that you can at least get some dry time, but it's still going to be quite windy. But that dry punch, it could be a saving grace for some of us for a little while, Friday afternoon and evening. We'll see. Okay, next week, there's the dry cold front, 70s to 60s, beautiful weather right after that, which is going to be awesome to see come our way. Any other questions I can try to answer? Jenny, travel from Gatlinburg, Lancaster to Gatlinburg this Saturday through Friday. Going to be tough. Going to be tough, Jenny. It is going to be messy on the roads. There could be still some high water issues. There could be a few issues from rock slides on some of the interstates there in the eastern part of Tennessee, especially. So just keep an eye on traffic conditions and check ahead. And just do not drive through there in very heavy rainfall. Avoid it. Stay the night somewhere and just kind of wait it out. Do not drive through that. It is going to be too dangerous. All right, Freddie, I'll get you for the last question here. Wanted to go to the zoo on Saturday. Go or stay home? Well, you could always go. You would be, it'll be open, right? So you'll end up being one of the few at the zoo, and you'll be able to see maybe a unique aspect of what the animals are doing. At the same time, if you don't want to get wet and deal with a chilly rain all day, then yeah, you probably want to stay in bed. I totally understand that. Okay, Jonathan, on that note, is this the longest storm talk? Probably is. That means I got to go. I'll see you guys come up on midday with the new stats on Helene.